Risk of Rain 2 rose to stardom, amassing over 200,000 positive reviews. To call it a good indie game would be an understatement. It's one of the best, but today, it's a shell of its former glory. The community is fractured, longtime fans are leaving, and even the game's biggest creators have had enough. So how did it possibly manage to nearly implode on itself almost 4 years later? As someone who's poured hundreds of hours into this masterpiece, I can tell you firsthand just how much this means to the entire community. But in order to grasp the magnitude of the situation, let's rewind. What made it so special? What was its appeal? And most importantly, what even is Risk of Rain 2? The story of Risk of Rain 2 starts at humble beginnings. Two lifelong friends, Duncan Drummond and Paul Morse, were always gamers at heart. As they grew older, their love for games slowly turned into a career path when they both enrolled at the University of Washington for game development. Although life is changing, their friendship remained strong, and the two of them would collaborate on small projects and explore the kinds of games they dreamed of creating. What first began as scribbled ideas flourished into fleshed out concept art that slowly evolved into their first game, the original Risk of Rain. The game pulled from the duo's favorite genres: platformers, bullet hells, and what the game is most known for, roguelikes. Roguelikes are a category of games where when you die, you lose everything. You restart from the beginning, and all you have are the skills you learn from failing, as well as certain abilities that come with your chosen character. Roguelikes have exploded within the past decade, with titles like Hades, Returnal, and Balatro. But one thing that made Risk of Rain stand out from the crowd was their main difficulty mechanic. The longer you played, the more difficult the game would become. The enemies would hit harder, they would have more health. It was the same for bosses you encountered as well. The game rewarded fast decision making, encouraging players to constantly weigh the risk of exploration against the taking pressure of time. The game was finished in less than a year and quickly garnered a loyal fanbase. Almost immediately after, they would jump headfirst into developing the sequel, Risk of Rain 2. Initially, it was supposed to be 2D like the first game, but they made the switch to 3D when Jeffrey Hunt joined the crew as the game's lead developer. The team also reached out to the composer of the first game, Christodoulou, who tackled the sequel and created Risk of Rain 2's stellar soundtrack. This team of four combined their mastery, passion, and determination to create the absolute masterpiece that is Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 released into early access on March 27, 2019 with the help of Gearbox Publishing. They'd become important later. But the sequel wasn't just a shift into 3D, they prioritized multiplayer play. And yes, this idea sounds nice, but they didn't just stop there. They drove this theme even further by releasing the first game with a buy one get one free deal. At the time, that was completely unheard of. This alone sparked countless people to purchase the game simply for its one-of-a-kind promotion. Some may think this could have been a bad financial decision from the team at Hopu, but in fact, it was the complete opposite. The game grew an even bigger fan base, reaching all parts of the internet, especially YouTube. The true heart of Risk of Rain 2 came from the content creators. They were pioneers who sunk thousands of hours into this game, making tier lists, challenge videos, overviews, and overall serving as a necessary foundation for any confusion some fans may have faced. Some notable creators were Wooly, Raydance, R&D Thursday, Disputed Origin, and Race. Today, their combined views amount to 172 million. This got a lot more eyes onto the game, from normal viewers on YouTube to outsiders that didn't even know what a roguelike was. Finally, around August of 2020, the game officially released with its 1.0 version. If you thought it couldn't get better from here, you were sadly mistaken. The Risk of Rain hype had just begun. At its release, Risk of Rain 2 was showered with positive critic scores and an overflowing amount of positivity. Popular creators began covering the game. Streamers like XUC would showcase gameplay live on his channel, while massive YouTubers like Moist Critical would praise it, giving it 95% on the Moist meter. And soon after, Hopu would announce the first DLC for the game, Survivors of the Void. This would introduce new characters, even more items, and completely unique gameplay mechanics that would shake up runs and add so much more depth. Not to mention, the modding scene was thriving. People made entire characters completely by themselves. It was slowly becoming a Fortnite level crossover. You could play Risk of Rain with Jinx, Goku, Tracer, and Sonic. It was insane. It was a continuous win after win after win. It seemed like this momentum would last forever. But on a fateful day in November of 2022, Hopu Games announced that they had sold the Risk of Rain IP to Gearbox. This would be the start of the monsoon, the beginning of the downfall. Fans met this acquisition with a bit of anxiety. Gearbox has been notorious for money-grabbing schemes and killing off other games that they had just purchased the IP of. But Hopu assured fans that they would keep a watchful eye over their beloved IP, confident that the team over at Gearbox would treat it with care. You might be asking the same thing others were. Why? Why did this team sell this insanely successful game? Why part with something that's been with them for years? It seems absurd, but in reality, it isn't as deep as you think. The team at Hopu were just ready to set sail on new adventures. The team believed they had done everything possible for the Risk of Rain IP. So instead of letting the game sit and collect dust, why not sell it to another development team to keep it alive? So fans cautiously accepted, and awaited for Gearbox to do something with their newly acquired treasure. But as soon as people started to trust this decision, the first red flag shot up. Gearbox's first order of business was to create a mobile gacha game. Yes, you heard that correctly, a gambling game on your phone. The trailer was immediately met with floods of dislikes and criticism, a game fully about microtransactions. But just as soon as it was announced, it was quietly taken off all app stores and ceased development. Thankfully for Gearbox, much of the backlash disappeared when the company announced its first self-made DLC, Seekers of the Storm. This DLC promised to add new characters, items, maps, as well as most importantly, a connected code between console and PC to make updates much more seamless. This was actually the main reason why the DLC took so long to come out. But even throughout the delay, fans kept up hope and believed in Gearbox's developmental prowess. But all of that came crashing down on August 27th, 2024, when Seekers of the Storm was released to the public. It was a shit show. A shit show wouldn't even be doing it justice. It was a calamity. Every run would be filled with bugs. Press the wrong button? Sorry, but now your entire save file is gone. Try to choose a character? Sorry, Lil Gup. They're literally all the same now. Finally got some items? Well, actually, they just don't work anymore. And even if you somehow avoid all these bugs and get to the final boss, there's a chance that it will just automatically kill you. The promise of combined coding actually served as a burden, causing completely different bugs to each different console, making the workload of fixing them multiplied almost 3 times. So Gearbox weren't just trying to prevent bugs from the PC version, but uniquely game-breaking bugs from Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch as well. This exploded dramatically, and Risk of Rain 2's reviews went from overwhelmingly positive, just positive, all the way to mixed. The DLC was even worse. It remained at a steady, overwhelmingly negative for almost a year. It wasn't even just a simple review bomb. Within 2 months of the DLC's release, Risk of Rain lost almost 60,000 monthly players. All at once, Risk of Rain 2 was thrown into a coffin made by the same people who were supposed to nurture this community and IP. Creators began leaving. Fans had outbursts of disappointment. It was a mess everywhere. The game that initially started as a passion project mutated into a disappointing release from another greedy gaming company. It was devastating. But maybe, just maybe, Gearbox had one more chance to redeem themselves. After 8 months, Gearbox finally fixed all the problems with Seekers of the Storm. And honestly, after it was polished, it was a very good piece of content. But to compare that to the state that it was released in is honestly a joke. It should have never been released with that much wrong in the first place. But looking past that, Gearbox became extremely transparent. They put their pride to the side and formally apologized to everyone. When they were fixing Seekers of the Storm, they had a 3-step plan, and throughout it all, they would update fans closely with their progress. Slowly and surely, reviews for the DLC began to ramp up, but it left the IP and fans forever tainted, a sour taste in their mouth. Gearbox proved to everyone that they can't be trusted. Not only did they completely fumble the DLC, but almost ruined the entire game's reputation. But let's remember here, fellas, in no way is this the developer's fault. It's likely that Gearbox had a firm deadline for the DLC that had to be followed. I've heard from multiple trusted creators, as well as the Hopu duo themselves, that the Gearbox team is truly passionate about Risk of Rain. So as much as it's hurt the fanbase, it must have been so draining for the team to ship out an unfinished product. Hopu left giant shoes to fill, especially after delivering a final love letter to the community with Risk of Rain Returns. It was a remaster that came out as the final hoorah from Hopu, and it added a layer of beautiful polish that the original game lacked. And Gearbox actually worked alongside Hopu to help create this game, not only for it to be finished quicker, but also to prove to fans that Gearbox does have what it takes to handle the Risk of Rain IP. So instead of looking down at the talented game developers over at Gearbox, we should instead be blaming the grubby, greedy higher-ups. It's not a good thing when your CEO responds to backlash of inflated game prices with, if they're a true fan, they'll find a way to get the game. This is an absolutely insane take, and just solidifies Gearbox's and their parent company, Take-Two's, philosophy. It'll always be money first and fans second. But remember when I said Gearbox has one more way to redeem themselves? Well, it was announced just recently that the third DLC is on the way. You might have just reacted the same way I did. They just fixed this DLC. There's already another one? Oh great, we're cooked. But actually, it shows a lot of promise. According to Gearbox, they're planning for this DLC to not only be better than the last, but better than any content update Risk of Rain has received thus far. And how are they doing that? Well, they're hiring a ton of people. Content creators are just one group, but they're also bringing aboard talented developers from the modding community. And that's not all. An original member from the Hopu team is actually back working with Gearbox, Jeffrey Hunt. This really does paint the picture that Alloy Collective has the potential to be the best DLC yet. One more shot, one more run. Will this DLC be the final nail in the coffin for Gearbox's Risk of Rain, or will it gain wings and soar to even greater heights? Only time will tell. But now, you're right there with me, waiting to see what unfolds. Thanks for watching.